Thank you for coming today. I realize that you have a busy schedule as teachers and you're still learning your craft. Today we're going to talk about student-teacher writing conferences. And the word conference sometimes has a negative connotation because back in elementary school, a parent-teacher conference was never a good thing. Or when you were in high school, the teacher would say, could you please step out with me? We need to have a conference. And conference usually meant we're going to talk about something. No, it meant the teacher is going to talk about something and lecture you about something that you did that he or she may not have liked. So for this purpose, we're going to talk about student-teacher writing conferences as conversations. Why have a conversation about writing? Having conversations with student writers develops a relationship between the teacher and the student. It differentiates instruction for that individual student's needs, provides genuine constructive feedback to students. It inspires critical thought about one's work, and it serves as an audience for students' work. In addition, your goal is to produce self-directed learners. So what you are doing is you're taking one-on-one time with that student as an individual, and you are telling that student, I care about you, I care about your work, and it is worth talking about. So tell me more about how you came up with what's on paper, rather than a red pen on a piece of paper saying, what were you thinking, question mark, with lines under it. So you're actually finding out what motivated the student to write. Conducting a conference is different than teaching in a classroom. If you look at the screen, you'll notice that the classroom list of components is all about the group and the teacher directing the group. There is a group focus. You use the teacher's content. The activity is teacher guided. The teacher is either a lecturer or a facilitator controlling the whole environment, and the student is a recipient. So the student tends to be a little passive, and the activities tend to be more directed and more specific based on what the teacher wants. But in a conference, there's an individual focus. The student's ideas are of prime concern. It is student guided, meaning based on the student's response, the teacher continues to ask questions to go further in that direction for learning. The teacher is a coach, and the student is a writer. When you meet to conference with anyone or a student, you should always set a time limit and adhere to it. You respect the person's time who is coming to you, and you respect the fact that they have other things to do. In addition, setting a time limit forces you to stay on topic and be very concise in your conversation. You greet the student and ask a friendly question. How was homecoming? How's the family? Did you get stuck in the rain like I got stuck in the rain? You know, something that is not related to the paper to make the student feel more comfortable and open up to you just a little bit more, kind of like an icebreaker. Establish and share a plan or a purpose for the conference. And this sounds very formal, but it's really not. Basically, you are sitting with the student and you're saying, hey, what do we need to talk about? What does this conversation need to be about, and how do we address this in reference to your writing? So you focus on the writing sample because the writing is the reason for the conference. And you wrap up by summarizing the student's comments so that the student knows, one, that you listen to them, and two, you connect what they said with your next expectation. And then at the end, you set a goal, refer a student to additional resources, which might be, in this paragraph, focus a little bit more on your experience as a child and tell me more, make me experience what you've experienced. And can you do that before you turn in your last draft? And then the student is able to do that. In the conference plan, you are preparing the students for what is coming. So during class, you're going to let the students know, hey guys, remember we have writing conferences coming up. I want you to bring a copy of your rough draft, and I want you to make a list of the topics for your upcoming paper. So students know, when I get to this meeting, we're going to talk about my rough draft, and we're also going to talk about what I'm getting ready to write. And this is assuming that the teacher has already read your rough draft. It's very important for you as the teacher to know the material before the meeting. You're going to set an agenda during the first few minutes of the conference, which we talked about just a moment ago, but you can get the information from the student by just saying, how was this assignment difficult? Where did you struggle with this assignment? Avoid asking yes or no questions, because if a student has the opportunity, they're going to answer yes, no, or I don't know. And you have to make sure you frame your questions so that they are thinking and responding. Another level of being a teacher who is conducting a conference is to be a cognitive coach. And cognitive coaching is a term used in education that some people may be familiar with and some may not, because it's a very specialized training, is non-judgmental, developmental, reflective model based on constructivist learning theory. And from the practices that you've had in your programs, you know that constructivist learning, you don't know what is going to happen in the end. You establish the environment and you provide the elements that are necessary for the student to learn, but what they learn and where they go with their learning is not predicted. It's constructed by the student. So as a cognitive coach, you have a few jobs, which are basic social skills and good conversation. You listen, because you are the audience. You question, ask questions that incite critical thought. Ask questions that make that writer think about, why did I do what I have just done? You pause. You provide time for reflection during the discussion. Provide time for the student to pause before answering, and before you paraphrase, you also pause to show that student that you're really thinking about what they have said and you're processing it before you talk again. You paraphrase students' comments so that they are sure that you heard them correctly, because if there's any miscommunication, when you paraphrase, the student may say, oh, that's not what I meant, and you really want to make sure that their message is being communicated. You probe, which is to carefully examine text and the student's thoughts. Coaching questions might include, why did you choose this topic? Why was UT softball camp a turning point for you? How was writing a memoir different from other essays? Questions that require students to think. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to very quickly conference about writing, and let me give you an example. The student I'm going to work with is Kristen, and we're still talking about the softball camp paper that you all have. Kristen, talk to me about how softball camp changed you as a person.
Well, softball kind of taught me aspects, I don't know, how I acted playing softball and on the field, and as a person, that's how I act now. And I guess it kind of taught me things about myself. It taught me how I kind of carry myself and different aspects of my character.
So you're saying that your experience with softball was not really about the bat, the ball, and running the bases. It was about the person you became in the pursuit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an example of asking a question, active listening, and then responding by paraphrasing and summarizing. You notice the head nodding and the eye contact and those kinds of things. That's good communication. So what you guys are going to do is you're going to reference Kristen's paper about softball, and you two, as teachers, are going to come up with, which I know you've already practiced this because you've had the paper, you're going to come up with a coaching question for Kristen.
Okay, so what life lessons did you take from softball that you would like to share with your readers?
Some of the lessons that I learned while playing softball was kind of responsibility for myself and for my own actions. I learned a lot about how to motivate myself to get things done. So if I set a goal for myself in softball, I had to motivate myself and want to have the drive to complete it. And so I guess in real life now, since I don't play softball anymore, I kind of find other goals and I push myself to achieve those goals because of what I did while I was playing softball.
That's good. My question was, how does writing in first person influence the audience?
I think that writing in first person gives the audience a more personal experience, so that it feels like they're actually there experiencing what I'm writing about, and it gives them a better perspective of the actual essay.
Okay, very good. And if this conversation continued, you could use that as a sounding point to start and say, okay, so if you'd written this paper in third person, do you think it would have been more effective? Mm-hmm. So listening leads to more questions, which leads to more thinking. You guys have done an excellent job today with the cognitive coaching part of conferencing, which is a conversation about writing, and I look forward to seeing the work that you do with your own students. Thank you very much.